1 minute ago, J.Lo orders Jamie Foxx to be terminated. Kash Patel exposed horrific crimes. No way out. It was a morning like no other. May 2025. A federal courthouse in New York pulsed with tension as cameras lined the steps, reporters jostled for position, and the nation held its breath. Jamie Foxx, actor, singer, survivor, walked through the doors not as a celebrity but as the central witness in one of the most explosive criminal trials in American entertainment history. The man, once known for charm and laughter, now carried a deeper gravity. He had survived an attempted murder. He had seen things most wouldn't believe, and now he was here to speak the truth. That truth pointed to two names, Sean "Diddy" Combs and Jennifer Lopez. They weren't just icons. According to Jamie, they were predators, and they had tried to silence him forever. Back in early 2023, Jamie was recovering from a sudden and nearly fatal stroke, or so the world believed. In reality, it was no stroke. It was poisoning, a meticulously executed attack using a synthetic neurotoxin known as neurotoxin X, a chemical so deadly it could mimic a natural cerebral hemorrhage. And it had one purpose: eliminate Jamie Foxx. He survived. Barely. But survival came with a cost. His grandmother, Esther Marie Talley, the woman who raised him, died just weeks before his collapse. The family thought it was natural, but behind the scenes, the FBI uncovered recordings, threatening calls from Diddy himself to Esther, angry, menacing, promising that Jamie's silence was non-negotiable. The deeper Jamie looked, the darker it got, and one day, while recovering, he stumbled across a terrifying realization: his poisoning was no accident. It was orchestrated. And Jennifer Lopez played a direct role. The courtroom erupted in whispers when Jamie entered, wearing a navy blue suit and a face hardened by months of betrayal and fear. Beside him sat Kash Patel, a former intelligence official and now special prosecutor for the FBI tasked with dismantling Diddy's criminal empire. Patel stood and addressed the court. "We present evidence that Mr. Jamie Foxx was targeted for assassination by a coordinated effort between Sean Combs and Jennifer Lopez. This was not a feud. This was an operation. And what you're about to hear will expose a criminal syndicate operating under the guise of celebrity." The first piece of evidence, a hidden recording recovered from a cloud server placed there by Jamie himself. It captured a chilling conversation between Diddy and an unidentified associate referencing neurotoxin X and Jamie by name. Then came the medical forensics, hair samples, toxicology reports, all pointing to the same substance. The poison had been introduced during a private meeting arranged under the pretense of reconciliation, a dinner with Jennifer Lopez. She served the wine. Hours later, Jamie collapsed. But that was only the beginning. What the FBI uncovered in the weeks after changed everything. Patel unveiled a secret marriage certificate between Lopez and Diddy dated back to 1999. It wasn't love. It was strategy, a legal shield to invoke spousal privilege and prevent testimony. Then came the notebook, found hidden in a steel-lined safe beneath a tunnel in Diddy's Los Angeles mansion, a tunnel Jamie had discovered while investigating the strange behavior of Jennifer in years past. The notebook detailed years of activity, trafficking payments to public officials, manipulation campaigns, and coded references to people like Jamie and Cassie. And on one of the pages, in Lopez's unmistakable handwriting, "Make sure the Fox problem goes away." The courtroom fell silent. Cassie Ventura, the former girlfriend of Diddy, stepped up next. Her voice shook, but she stood tall. "I saw them plan it. They talked about Jamie. They said he knew too much. Jennifer told Diddy she would handle it. And she had. Jamie's near death, Esther's sudden passing, the destruction of evidence, it was all part of a script. One written not in ink, but in silence, power, and fear. But now that silence was broken. And Jamie Foxx was no longer just a survivor. He was the catalyst. The courtroom remained in stunned silence as Jamie Foxx resumed his testimony. His voice, though heavy with emotion, cut through the tension like a scalpel. "I didn't want to believe it at first, But once you survive death, once you see your own grandmother taken from you, there's no more room for denial. Jamie described what led him to the darkest place of all, Diddy's mansion on the outskirts of Los Angeles, a fortress of wealth, music, and fear. Years ago, while still under the illusion that Jennifer Lopez was simply haunted by her past, Jamie noticed unusual behaviors, late-night phone calls, coded texts, a constant unease in her presence. Then came the sound. It was subtle, a click under the living room floor, like someone stepping on hollow wood. Curiosity became suspicion. One night when Jennifer was away, Jamie pulled up the floorboards. There he found a hidden tunnel, damp, narrow, reeking of mold and secrecy. Armed with a flashlight and a camera, he followed it. What he found horrified him. The tunnel led to a sealed room under the estate-cold concrete walls, lined with cameras lighting rigs and a massive industrial safe. It looked like a mix between a film set and a prison. Jamie said it felt like standing in the belly of a monster. Inside the safe, he uncovered a hard drive labeled Control, a notebook with pages marked by code names, dates, and grotesque references. Multiple still photos of known celebrities in compromising positions. A letter handwritten and signed by Jennifer Lopez instructing someone to move the girls and scrub the tapes. The court gasped. Back in the courtroom, Special Prosecutor Kash Patel presented the hard drive's contents. Though some files were encrypted, recovered data included a grainy video showing Diddy and a woman resembling Jennifer standing beside a frightened young girl. Footage of parties involving coercion, drug use, and violence. Bank transfers between shell companies and suspicious charities. Patel's voice was firm. This isn't about celebrity drama. This is about organized crime, and Jennifer Lopez is not innocent. She's documented as facilitating, covering up, and commanding suppression of these atrocities. Jamie then described the night he confronted Jennifer. He showed her the notebook. She didn't deny it. Instead, she calmly said, "You don't understand what you've gotten into. There are things bigger than us. Walk away, Jamie. Just walk away." He didn't. Then a darker memory emerged. 1 week later, Jamie's car was rammed off a highway in Brentwood. The license plate was traced to a security firm contracted by Diddy. Days after that, his Boston family home was broken into. Nothing was stolen, but spray-painted on the wall in red "Silence or Else." Jamie reported it all to the FBI. That's when Kash Patel entered the picture. He had been leading a quiet federal probe into music industry crimes. Jamie's files were the missing piece. But what triggered the final decision to testify wasn't about himself. It was about his grandmother Esther. During the federal investigation, Patel obtained surveillance logs from a private lab suspected of developing synthetic poisons. Diddy's name appeared in several internal memos under a pseudonym. Among the records, a neurotoxin delivery batch, scheduled to New Orleans days before Esther's death. Then audio tapes emerged. Diddy had called Esther several times in the weeks leading up to her passing. "You need to tell him to back off. Jamie keeps digging and he's going to end up where you're headed. You don't want to be collateral grandma." Esther never told Jamie. At this point in the trial, the gallery was silent. One juror wiped away a tear. Another shook their head in disbelief. Jamie's hands trembled. "She was my heart," he whispered. "And they killed her because she raised me right." Patel confirmed through forensics that traces of neurotoxin X were found in both Jamie and Esther's blood samples, preserved during their respective hospital admissions. That wasn't coincidence. That was murder. As the day's session closed, the prosecution requested a witness protection order for Jamie and enhanced security around key evidence. The judge granted both, citing a credible systemic threat against the witness and others tied to this case. The final blow that day came from Patel, who announced that the FBI was now officially charging Jennifer Lopez with obstruction of justice conspiracy and complicity in organized crime. The cameras outside exploded with activity, but inside the courtroom, Jamie sat back, not as a victim, but as the man who had finally exposed the darkness beneath the glitter. The next day, the courtroom was packed again. Journalists, legal observers, and former associates of Diddy and Jennifer Lopez, now forced to confront a web of secrets unraveling in real time. Special Prosecutor Kash Patel stood tall, holding what he called the linchpin of the conspiracy, a secret marriage certificate. Signed and dated December 1999, the document revealed a legal union between Sean Diddy Combs and Jennifer Lopez. It had never been made public. According to Patel, the certificate was notarized quietly, under a pseudonym-filled witness list. Why? Because spousal privilege protects against compelled testimony in federal court, Patel declared. This marriage wasn't born of love, it was a fortress. Jamie Foxx testified that he discovered the document hidden inside an old safe, behind a false wall panel in Jennifer's private dressing room. Alongside it were documents tying illegal firearms, some recovered in the tunnel under the mansion, to Jamie's own name. A clear attempt to frame him. She wanted out of our marriage, Jamie said, but more than that, she needed to silence me. And Diddy gave her the means to do it. The courtroom murmured in disbelief. The idea of two of the biggest pop culture figures of the century being legally married in secret to shield each other from prosecution was mind-bending. But the evidence was in plain sight now. Only hours after Jamie's testimony and Patel's bombshell revelation, federal marshals arrived at Jennifer Lopez's Beverly Hills mansion with a subpoena and an arrest warrant. But she was already gone. Security footage showed Jennifer boarding a private jet at 3:14 a.m., less than 10 hours before the arrest order. She left with 3 unidentified individuals and 6 bags. Her destination, Belize, a country with no extradition treaty with the United States. Patel confirmed that a high-profile political fixer arranged the flight and safe house in advance. Though he didn't name names publicly, Jamie later revealed the whispers inside the investigation. The mysterious benefactor may be a U.S. official with financial ties to Diddy's empire. Even Kash Patel himself admitted, there are people in this country who don't want the full truth exposed. This isn't just a celebrity scandal, it's systemic. Meanwhile, Diddy remained under house arrest in a secure federal facility in New York. His legal team moved to suppress the marriage certificate and tunnel footage as inadmissible, prejudicial, and obtained illegally. But the FBI had already verified the footage's authenticity, confirmed the tunnel's existence through their own raid, and cross-referenced it with past reports of missing persons near Diddy's properties. Part 3 of the trial also gave voice to the forgotten names, victims whose stories were buried by money threats or shame. A forensic accountant took the stand and laid out how Diddy's shell companies had been funneling millions through fraudulent charities, claiming tax-exempt status while using them to traffic people, launder drug money, and pay hush settlements. One document showed a $1.2 million transfer marked therapy fund that had been redirected to a nightclub owner in Prague, the same man photographed hosting Diddy, Jennifer, and 3 underage girls in 2012. Cassie Ventura, who had been in hiding, returned under protective custody and delivered devastating testimony. Jennifer wasn't a prisoner. She helped choose the girls. She helped plan the parties. She told me to shut up more than Diddy ever did. Cassie's words hit like thunder. She recalled seeing Jennifer giving orders to staff about where the cameras go and which guests should be handled with care. Later that day, the courtroom's attention turned toward a man named Dr. Leland Rourke, a former pharmaceutical researcher and developer of neurotoxin X, the synthetic compound used in the attempted murder of Jamie and allegedly in the death of his grandmother. Dr. Rourke, under FBI custody, confessed in a taped deposition that the formula was commissioned in 2001 by a shell company connected to Diddy. He admitted Jennifer visited the lab twice, one time, posing as a pharmaceutical investor. The toxin was designed to mimic stroke symptoms and dissipate quickly, leaving no trace in standard toxicology tests. It was the perfect weapon for silence, Dr. Rourke said, and they paid very well to keep it that way. Kash Patel then revealed that a tiny dose of the toxin had been found in Jennifer's personal handbag, recovered from her estate, a vial with trace amounts of neurotoxin X registered to a front company dissolved in 2020. By the end of Part 3, the courtroom and public were beginning to understand the terrifying scale of this case. A secret marriage forged to block testimony. A poison used to stage deaths and silence threats. A network of financial cover-ups, layered charities, and corrupted law enforcement. And now a celebrity fugitive protected by political muscle and global money. Jamie Foxx, once a symbol of Hollywood charm, now stood as its reluctant reckoner. His voice steady but haunted, he ended the day's testimony with this: "They think they can run. They think this world belongs to them, but truth has no passport, and it never sleeps." The courtroom was no longer just a place of law. It had become a stage one, where the facades of fame, glamour, and power were falling apart. With Jennifer Lopez now a fugitive and Diddy facing an expanding web of criminal charges, the fourth day of the trial plunged into the darker infrastructure that kept their empire alive. Special Prosecutor Kash Patel walked into the courtroom holding a slim black binder. In it, he said, were records that linked Diddy's music label and Jennifer Lopez's management company to a staggering network of front businesses. Each one, Patel claimed, played a part in concealing crimes, trafficking, financial fraud, and targeted silencing. These weren't just shell companies. They were shadow pipelines, Patel declared. Pipelines built to transport money, erase identities, and export victims across borders. He opened the binder and began listing names: Pacific Sun Trust, a fake charitable trust based in Belize; Encore Horizon Talent LLC, allegedly a cover for international transport operations involving underage victims; the Diamond Lounge Network, a chain of VIP clubs across Europe where Diddy and Jennifer frequently held private events. Documents showed payouts to fake vendors and forged receipts signed by Jennifer herself. One ledger recorded a $3.4 million maintenance cost for a Beverly Hills renovation, but the address listed was a foreign exchange apartment in Bucharest. Every transaction, Patel claimed, had one purpose: hide the rot beneath the empire's golden surface. Then came the next bombshell. A man entered the courtroom, flanked by U.S. Marshals. His name was Marco "Slug" Delano, a former bodyguard for Jennifer Lopez. Delano wore sunglasses and had a visible scar across his left cheek. He testified under immunity, claiming that he'd been in charge of cleanup operations during many of Diddy and Jennifer's events. His job was to ensure that if anyone got too loud, too hurt, or too curious, they disappeared quietly. There was a protocol, he said. There were codes for everything. Orange Night meant move the guest. Gray Alert meant bury it digitally or physically. The courtroom gasped as Delano described a secure underground archive at a private property owned by Jennifer's management company, where hundreds of hours of surveillance footage were stored, documenting illegal activity. They filmed everything he said. Not for fun, for control. When asked about Jamie Foxx's grandmother, Esther Marie, Jamie Talley, Delano hesitated. Then he said, "I was in the room when the call came through. It was Jennifer. She said, 'He still won't back down. We need to shut his anchor.'" That's what they called her, his anchor. Kash Patel then summoned Dr. Elise Hahn, a forensic pathologist from the FBI's toxicology division. She had overseen the exhumation and second autopsy of Esther Talley's remains, after Jamie requested a full reinvestigation. Dr. Hahn presented the court with stunning results. Microscopic traces of neurotoxin X were found in the marrow of Esther's femur. A specific metabolite matched a batch identified in Diddy's hidden lab. Time of death and degradation were consistent with a poisoning event disguised as cardiac arrest. The courtroom was silent. Jamie Foxx's jaw clenched, tears welling in his eyes. "She didn't die of old age. She was murdered," Dr. Hahn said. "Intentionally, precisely, and silently." Kash Patel produced one last piece of evidence for the day, a series of recovered phone calls between Diddy and Jennifer Lopez, some dated mere weeks before Jamie's stroke. On one recording, Diddy's voice was unmistakable. You want to close this, then close it. Old lady first. He'll crumble after that. Jennifer replied. Once she's gone, he'll come begging for quiet. Trust me. Another tape had Diddy speaking to an unknown party. Jamie thinks God's on his side. Let's see if God stops this stroke from hitting. The final call was short but devastating. Jennifer's voice was calm, calculated. It's already in the tea. By the time the nurse checks her, it's done. Gasps broke out across the courtroom. A few people cried. One juror had to be escorted out due to a panic attack. As the fourth session ended, the public reaction outside the courthouse turned explosive. Protesters held signs reading "Justice for Jamie" and "Lopez kills for power." On social media, Jennifer exposed and Diddy empire trended worldwide. Meanwhile, the DOJ announced it was opening a broader criminal conspiracy case, not just against Diddy and Jennifer, but against others complicit in maintaining their criminal structure. Accountants, media executives, lawyers, and even certain federal agents. Kash Patel spoke to reporters after court. This isn't just about one man or one woman. This is about systemic corruption in the highest tiers of culture and governance. And we won't stop until every stone is overturned. The day closed with Jamie Foxx walking out of the courtroom to applause from the public, his expression solemn but unbroken. Inside, Diddy stared forward, unmoved. Jennifer Lopez was still missing. The fifth session began under heightened security. The media dubbed it Judgment Day for the Empire. With Jennifer Lopez still missing and an international warrant now in effect, all eyes turned to Diddy. He arrived in court stone-faced, flanked by lawyers, security, and silence. But the silence wouldn't last long. Special Prosecutor Kash Patel returned to center stage with a new exhibit, a digital reconstruction of Jennifer's last 72 hours in the United States. Using geolocation data, cloud access records, and testimony from airport staff, Patel presented a timeline that showed Jennifer took off at 2:13 a.m. from Van Nuys Airport. She was accompanied by two known foreign intelligence liaisons from a country without an extradition treaty with the U.S. The jet's tail number had been previously linked to covert CIA extractions during the Bush administration. This was not a panicked escape, Patel said. It was orchestrated, financed, protected. A wave of murmurs swept the courtroom. The implication was clear: Jennifer Lopez was shielded not just by money but by state-level forces. Next came the testimony of Randall Gates, a whistleblower from inside the Department of Justice. Gates, formerly a cybersecurity analyst, revealed email chains between Diddy's legal team and certain DOJ officials. There were directives to delay forensic analysis, to obstruct access to financial data, to reclassify FBI reports as pending clearance. All of it pointed to a pattern: protect Diddy, shield Lopez. Gates disclosed a chilling memo titled "Risk to National Stability," which labeled the investigation as a potential threat to bipartisan donors and entertainment-linked influencers. That's when Patel dropped another bombshell. There was a list, he said, holding up a single sheet of paper. It contains the names of senators, governors, and CEOs who attended Diddy's freak-off parties. These names were used to blackmail to buy silence. The list was not shown to the public, but its existence alone sent a shockwave through Washington, D.C. Jamie Foxx returned to the witness stand, this time with fire in his voice and vengeance in his posture. Gone was the quiet grief. In its place stood a man who had stared into the abyss and survived. "They tried to erase me," he said, "tried to shut me down with poison and propaganda, but I'm still here, and I'm not alone." He pulled out a flash drive, one containing a hidden recording taken before his stroke. The courtroom fell silent as the audio played. Jennifer. He still has the footage. Either he gives it up or he goes down like the rest. Diddy. Let's test the new dose. Stroke no trace. Quiet and clean. Unknown. What about his grandmother, Jennifer? Old lady dies quietly. Jamie loses anchor. He spirals. Gasps erupted. Jamie sat still, his eyes shut, fists clenched. Midway through the day, the court received an encrypted file from an anonymous whistleblower. It contained surveillance footage of a neurotoxin X lab. Audio of Jennifer discussing fund transfers to cover its operations. Internal emails referring to Jamie's poisoning as Operation Nightingale. Patel verified the metadata and declared it admissible. The footage showed a lab worker extracting serum into glass vials. One voice off-camera said, "The dose for Jamie is ready." A digital ledger matched the timing of the serum's transfer with Jennifer's flight logs. She administered the kill order and fled, Patel concluded. Outside, the courthouse pressure mounted on U.S. allies. The country harboring Jennifer faced diplomatic heat. The State Department confirmed negotiations were underway for extradition despite no treaty. Meanwhile, Jamie Foxx's public image transformed. Once mocked for silence during his recovery, he was now a symbol of resilience. Late-night hosts called him America's truth teller. Hollywood insiders began flipping. One by one, B-list actors, talent managers, and assistants stepped forward. "We were told if we spoke up, we'd disappear," said one former assistant. But Jamie didn't disappear. He came back. So now we speak. Patel returned to court for one final declaration before recess. This case is not just about individual guilt. It's about dismantling a system where power conceals abuse, where fame protects monsters. We are exposing that system, and when it falls, it will fall hard. The jury listened in rapt attention. So did the world. Diddy stared ahead, stone-faced, but his empire was crumbling. Jennifer remained silent in exile. And Jamie, he stood taller than ever. The final session opened with a storm outside and a storm inside. Manhattan Federal Courthouse, once a site of glamour and whispers, now echoed with the thunder of retribution. Kash Patel rose. In his hand, a thick black binder marked "Classified." Within it, the final pieces. First, the court heard a voicemail from Jennifer Lopez, recently recovered from an encrypted satellite device. "Jennifer, he's going to talk. Jamie's talking. We have to finish it. Diddy's too loud. Tell him I said Jamie for good this time." Even without video, her voice was unmistakable. The room froze. One juror visibly trembled. The clerk paused before entering it into evidence. For the first time in the trial, the prosecution declared Lopez not just an accomplice, but a co-architect. Jamie's private investigator, Alex Carter, returned to present the final forensic analysis. 9 shell corporations tied to Lopez, 4 international bank accounts, traced back to offshore havens too, false charities masking human trafficking routes. The total over $137 million laundered, used to fund the neurotoxin X lab, pay bribes to officials and fuel party networks that lured and trapped victims. A PowerPoint displayed Jennifer's signed approval for non-disclosed R&D funding, traced to the lab where neurotoxin X was developed. More evidence from the hospital emerged. A tampered IV line matched Diddy's personal chemist's fingerprints. Surveillance video showed a disguised woman, later ID'd as Jennifer's assistant, entering Jamie's room with gloves and a vial. Toxicology confirmed the IV was loaded with a variant of neurotoxin X. Patel stood. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this was not a spontaneous act of vengeance. It was a pre-planned state-level operation carried out to erase a man, and it failed." Jamie Foxx returned to the stand for the last time. He faced the jurors and said, "My grandma died with fear in her heart, knowing a shadow followed me. She knew before I did. And Jennifer, you smiled at her funeral, I remember." One juror sobbed. Another looked away. It was too much. Then the court lights dimmed. Kash Patel played never-before-seen bodycam footage inside Diddy's freak-off tunnel. The hidden room with cameras, cold floors, chained restraints. A time-stamped clip of Jennifer walking past one of the victims, looking straight at the camera and winking. The air was sucked out of the room. Jamie covered his face. Patel whispered something to the bailiff. The judge pounded the gavel. Order. Breaking news erupted during court recess. Interpol confirmed that Jennifer Lopez was captured in Dubrovnik, Croatia. Her private security detail was bribed. She had been hiding in a diplomatic compound tied to an unnamed Middle Eastern benefactor. Jennifer was on a jet back to the United States. Live cameras outside the courthouse caught Kash Patel exiting, speaking briefly. Justice crosses oceans. She will stand trial. Kash Patel's final words. You've seen the videos. You've heard the voices. The stars you idolized used that light to blind you from their darkness. But the truth made it here. And it made it because Jamie Foxx refused to stay quiet. He turned to Jamie. You lived, you fought, and now you've won. After 12 hours of deliberation, the jury returned. Diddy guilty on 19 counts. Jennifer Lopez in absentia guilty on 14 counts. Sentencing postponed pending Jennifer's arrival. Cheers erupted outside the courthouse. The world changed in that moment. In the days that followed, Jennifer arrived in custody under U.S. Marshals. Celebrities fled the country. A Senate inquiry was launched into DOJ corruption. A class action lawsuit was filed by over 40 victims. Jamie released a statement. This isn't a movie, but maybe it'll inspire one. He appeared on every major network, no longer an actor, but a whistleblower icon. A year later, Jamie stood in front of a congressional hearing, flanked by Kash Patel and Cassie Ventura. You can't fix what you don't face. We faced it. Now fix it. As he left the Capitol, a young reporter asked Mr. Fox, "What would your grandmother say today?" Jamie paused. She'd say, "Told you the devil wears diamonds.